You are listening to the Fantasy IPA podcast.
Can't wait. It's time to go eat, baby. Let's eat.
Your audio hangout for the latest intel, projections, and analytics.
Hey, we are playing to win. I'm in a league of my own. They ain't ready for me.
Visit us at fantasyipa.com and follow us on Twitter at fantasy_IPA.
Let's do this.
And welcome to another episode of the Fantasy IPA podcast. This is a very exciting day because we're finishing up the first round of the Fantasy Face-Off. We've got two very special guests, but before I kick it over to them, I wanted to say hi to my co-host, Jamie. How are things going?
Going great. Very excited to be getting this Face-Off round one, wrapping it up. I'm getting on to round two, but today we have two very special guests. I'll kick it back to you, Art, let you introduce them, and we'll move on.
All right, and just remember to follow Jamie at FIPA_black. Follow me on the site at fantasy_IPA, and visit us at www.fantasyipa.com. All right, let's bring in the guests. I'm going to introduce our first competitor tonight, and it is Sam Holt. Sam, do you want to say hi, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where they might find you?
Hi guys, I'm Sam. You can find me on Twitter at Samantha R. Holt. I've been playing fantasy for 6 or 7 years now. I was in the Women's League 2.0 last year with Matthew Berry, and we played against Secret Squirrel. However, I'm not the Sam that everyone knows about that won that league. I'm the Sam that lost that league because I was not aware that there was an offensive player position, and I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. So I lost for that reason. And CJ Anderson, I blame him.
We need to have a little talk, Sam, because I went to your website at, what is it, cargocollective.com, Sam Holt Studios, and I was drawn in by the fact that you let humor inspire you, and then I clicked into the pictures and thought, man, I might have nightmares, but did you want to talk a little bit about your art? And let me just say, though, real quick, that it is just gorgeous and touching art. If you go in there, you're going to get, emotionally inspired. But Sam, anything to add to that?
I guess I don't typically have the same sense of humor as most people. A lot of my artwork is a little bit dark to some people, but I think it's funny, and I enjoy other people's reactions to my artwork. So if something that I know will scare someone, and if they react the way I want them to, that makes me laugh. So I'm that friend in college that jumped out of closets and scared my friends. That's the kind of person I am.
Yeah, very nice. Please go check it out. I mean, it's very, very emotion inspiring to see some of these illustrations. Very cool stuff. Well, let's kick it over to our next guest and competitor. We are very happy to bring on Mo Brewington, and he is our second guest from DLF Dynasty League Football. How you doing, Mo?
Very good, Art. How's it going, man?
Doing great.
Yeah. Mo Brewington. I've been writing for DLF for just over a year. Got picked up on waivers last summer. Mainly I write a little bit of IDP, just a little bit about the offensive side of the ball, all about Dynasty football. Been playing Dynasty football for probably about 5 years, and fantasy overall for probably close to 7 or 8. So, yeah, happy to be here.
Very cool Twitter handle, too. If you'd like to follow Mo, it's at smashmouth_Mo. Can't get any better than that. And by the way, Sam, Mo was telling us he has 5 daughters, so he should know how to compete.
Yeah. I'm used to getting my butt kicked by women all the time.
Nice.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the face-off. By the way, round one is completing, and although we haven't released all the podcasts, the competitor for the person who advances has been established, and it is Jake Seeley. We released that podcast early last week. Make sure you give it a listen, and the winner of this matchup will get the honors of moving on to face Jake. Should be a fun show. All right, so let me frame up this exercise for the audience. The way this will work is we're going to have 3 rounds. The first 2 rounds are going to be alternate listing rounds, where I'm going to give you a category, and all you have to do is name the player or team or other that fits into that category. Now, every once in a while, we will have an answer that's going to trigger one of our school breaks.
Yo, sound the bell. School is in, sucker.
Where you'll hear the school bell ringing. That's where we'll stop down and really dig into and grab some nuggets from our very special analysts that we have on today. So after those first two rounds, we will close up with our third round, which is our lightning round, where once again we're going to give you a category and or question. In this case, there will be 7 questions that you will have to answer in rapid fire succession. So a total of 30 seconds to answer those 7. We're going to kick off the first round with Mo. So Mo, you'll get the first shot of this. This question revolves around 2015. And in 2015, there were 10 wide receivers that had 9 top 24 finishes or more. These wide receivers had 9 games where they finished as either a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. That's how we have defined top finishes. So
I'll start with Mr. Antonio Brown. Safe bet, right?
yes, Antonio Brown is on this list. He finished with 11 games where he finished as a top 24 receiver. I've actually got the breakdown here where 8 of those were wide receiver 1 games and 3 of those were wide receiver 2 games. Very good. And he's been showing up quite a bit on our fantasy face-off, as you could probably predict. But all right, let's kick it over to you, Sam. Who is your first guess?
I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins.
All right. And Sam, you've triggered our first school break where we're going to stop down and drop some knowledge. So with regards to DeAndre Hopkins, I'm seeing him going anywhere from 3rd in the first round to the late 1st. Last year, the first 8 weeks, he had 6 number 1 finishes, but in the last 8 weeks, he was down to 2. And so really what we're saying here is he kind of tailed off towards the end, whether it comes to production or targets. So my question to you guys is, where do you see Hopkins finishing this year, and where are you targeting? Sam, I'll start with you since you answered this question.
Well, I think it depends on the league that you're drafting for. Obviously, if it's PPR, he's going first round no matter what. Besides that, otherwise, depending on how deep the league is, I would say late first, just because I don't know how everyone else drafts, but I know that in my leagues, I always see running backs going first thing besides Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham. So that's where I'd place him in getting drafted. Where he's going to end of the year, I think that depends on Brock Lobster and how he does. But I think that he's going to be solid. I mean, he seems like there was a great coaching staff in Denver. He knows what he's doing. He's not going to be, unable to handle the workload, the pressure. He handled it there fine. I think he'll be just fine as long as he can get him the ball, and Hopkins will just have to run it.
Mm-hmm.
Big yards out of him for a catch.
Yeah, I also think the addition of Will Fuller may open things up for DeAndre underneath over there. How about you, Mo? What's your take on DeAndre Hopkins, and where are you targeting him?
Yeah, that's really the big question because of all the additions with Will Fuller and if Braxton Miller can find a way to get incorporated into the offense. And then Lamar Miller is a huge question mark. I think if you look at Hopkins' production throughout the season, it's natural, I guess, to expect a drop-off because the quarterback play was subpar. The running back play was pretty much below average. So as far as where I'd look to grab Hopkins, I would have to say middle to late first. Yes, he wouldn't be a guy that I would take off the top like Antonio or like an Odell Beckham that I'd be comfortable taking in one of those first 2 or 3 spots. But definitely in the first round because I think this year, unlike the ones in the past most recent years, RB0 is going to be a big deal. I think you can really get strong by taking good wide receivers off the bat, and you'll be able to fill in the blanks pretty well later on with your running backs in the mid-round. So first sounds about right.
Good stuff. Thanks for that, Mo. And I'm going to pause here because I forgot to mention to you guys, in case you didn't know, within these rounds, you'll be allotted 2 strikes. And if you do get that second strike before your competitor, the competitor will have the opportunity to complete out the list. So very careful with those 2 strikes. And we're going to move on. And I believe that kicks us over to you, Mo. Who is your next guest?
Let's go with Mr. Julio Jones.
Yes, the heavily targeted Julio Jones, and he did finish at the top of this list with 13 games of wide receiver 2 or higher. And it's really skewed to 1 because he had 10 wide receiver 1 weeks to lead the fantasy wide receivers, with 3 wide receiver 2 weeks and 1 wide receiver 3 weeks. So very solid season from Julio Jones. That takes us to our next guest with you, Sam. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Odell Beckham.
Near the top of this list with 11 1 or 2 finishes, 7 wide receiver 1 games, and 4 wide receiver 2 games. And mind you, he also missed a game, so he could have been right up there. All right, so we are neck and neck, 2-2 here. Mo, who do you got?
I'm going to take Larry Fitz.
Very good, very good.
Yes, and you were kind of dancing on the edge there, Mo, because Larry Fitz barely made the cutoff with 9 1 or 2 finishes. He did have 5 wide receiver 1 games and 4 wide receiver 2 games. And as I'm looking throughout his season, he did most of that before week 11. As a matter of fact, he did not have a wide receiver 1 finish after week 11. There is a little bit of concern about Larry falling off towards this year, but we'll see.
Isn't there always, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think between Larry Fitzgerald and Frank Gore, I've expected those guys to fall off the face of the earth every year for the past 5. Never had.
Mo, you're back on the board. Let's kick it over to Sam. Sam, who do you got next?
Brandon Marshall.
Yes, and
School. It's not double jeopardy.
We may implement that in a future iteration, but right now we're going to stop down for the school break and drop some knowledge. As far as Marshall goes, there's conflicting reports on whether the New York Jets are going to sign Fitz. Some say it's a foregone conclusion. Some say they're ready to move on without him. I would submit that Chan Gailey's going to be there regardless of Fitz. Now, Marshall is actually falling in a lot of drafts to the middle of the second, late second. So where are you guys targeting Marshall?
I think that sounds about right. Until that quarterback job is secured, it's kind of hard to trust where he's going to go. Can't catch it if no one good's throwing him the ball. Yeah, I would say mid-second sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, naturally the quarterback thing, and I'm not a complete, crazy as this sounds, disbeliever in Geno. He had one good game last year in the one game that he got to play, but I've always believed that the kid could do a little bit more if he had a little bit more talent. And right now with Marshall and Decker, I think there's a chance for him to make some noise, not to mention Forte. Second might be a little bit earlier than I personally want to target him. Getting into the third, late second, third, I think it's probably about right, but he's not somebody that I'm willing to bet the house on with that unsettlement there at the quarterback position.
Yeah, it's that age factor coming off a really strong year where actually he shows up second on this list with 12 1 or 2 finishes and 9 wide receiver 1 finishes only to trail Julio Jones. But Brandon Marshall, can he keep it up at his age? We'll see. And can he do it without Fitz? We may see. All right, Sam, great guess there. That brings us back to you, Mo. Who is your next guess?
Let's take Allen Robinson.
Yeah, and Allen Robinson, while he did have 10 finishes, they came a little bit later in the year. Throughout his first 4 weeks, he posted 1 number 1 finish, but didn't in week 2, but then didn't pick it back up until week 5. So some of us remember that kind of a drought stretch there, but he obviously came on strong, finished the year very well, finished with 10 overall 1 or 2 wide receiver 1 or 2 finishes. So another correct answer there.
Allen Robinson will forever break my heart because last season I made one of the dumbest trades I've ever made.
Oh no!
I gave up Allen Robinson and Carlos Hyde in exchange for LaShawn McCoy and a first-round draft pick in a dynasty league. I really wanted the first round.
You know what? Was it this year's first rounder, Mel?
It was last year's.
Okay. Do you know who did you get with it?
I took Mariota.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So, yeah. But, I don't think that'll be the worst pick down the road, but I'd really like to have Allen Robinson back in my team right now.
It'd be very nice to have. So you guys have already named 7 of the 10 receivers that fall into this category. That leaves just 3. We're going to kick it back over to you, Sam. Can you get one of them?
Doug Baldwin.
Oh, that's probably where I was going next, too.
Oh.
Thanks for taking that hit for me, Sam.
I tell you what, this has happened in every one of our episodes where a competitor will bless the other competitor with their next guess or with their next wrong guess. So now, while Doug Baldwin, he barely missed this list. He did only have 7, so he missed it by 2. I think that the main reason is that he had a very slow beginning of the year. Now, what's interesting about Doug Baldwin, though, is from week 10 on, he had 5 wide receiver 1 finishes, a wide receiver 3, and a wide receiver 2 finish. So probably one of the strongest playoff performances in the wide receiver position. But unfortunately, Doug did not make this list.
That ridiculous touchdown streak that he had at the end of the year didn't hurt at all, man.
Yeah, that's right. And so that does give you your first strike, Sam. Mo, can you capitalize? I got 3 more receivers. Can you name one?
I'm going to say Michael Crabtree.
Good guess, though.
Yeah, Michael Crabtree, and I'm scanning my sheet here. Michael Crabtree actually came in with only 5 1 or 2 finishes, but he was ultra consistent in that he had 6 wide receiver 3 finishes. So over the entire 16-game season, he had 11 games where he finished in the top 36, but some of those games were a little bit lower on the spectrum, which eliminated him from this category. But that makes it interesting now because both of our analysts now have a strike each. The next person to strike will be eliminated from the round, and we'll open up the door to complete the list. So Sam, let's see if you can avoid that second strike.
Okay, I'm gonna say Eric Decker.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, and to me, I thought Decker was the hardest one, so kudos, Sam. Very good answer there.
I'm a Dynasty Decker owner.
Yeah, there you go. And you're also a school bell kicker offer, evidently, because we've got another school break. But yeah, Eric Decker, he did make the list at 9. He had 5 wide receiver 1 weeks, 4 wide receiver 2 weeks. And this is an interesting tidbit that he also had 5 wide receiver 3 weeks. So he had a very, very high percentage of top 36 weeks. And as you can see, he may be the true definition of a high floor receiver. But the school break revolves around his ADP, and at 5'11", courtesy of Fantasy Football Calculator, or 60-second player, seems to be going a little bit late for that type of production. Now, we talked earlier about Marshall and how Fitz could move the needle a little bit on him if he does sign, but is 5'11" too late, Sam? What do you think?
I mean, I might be biased because I think he's pretty to look at, but I mean, no, I think it's fine. Maybe a little bit earlier would be good, but last year he was Mr. Consistent for me. I didn't have to worry about him. Every week he got me at least 1 touchdown, at least 1. Yeah. So he was solid. I mean, he's not going to go crazy early, but he's, just one of those middle of the pack guys that you can kind of count on. So yeah. I'm surprised if he goes super late, though. I can't imagine him ever going undrafted because he's too consistent.
No. How about you, Mo? Where are you at with Eric Decker?
He's definitely a guy I wouldn't mind acquiring to have as a wide receiver 3, occasional wide receiver 2. Again, it's always going to boil down to the quarterback with those kind of guys, particularly if you're going to have to share targets with Brandon Marshall. So if Marshall were out of the picture, if he were to get injured or something, then yeah, Decker definitely has to get a bump up as somebody I think is a consistent wide receiver 2 for you. Dynasty-wise, what you get with Decker is the age advantage over Marshall. So say Gino or possibly Hackenberg get an actual stronghold on the quarterback job. Now you got somebody you can ride in Dynasty for the next 2-3 seasons at least. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good buy there in the 5th, 6th round. Why not?
Yeah.
Keep in mind, he never explodes with those finishing first, second, or third a week, but he is so consistent. He finished 13th last year in PPR scoring, so pretty good, and I believe that was in 15 games instead of 16 as well. So yeah, Decker's one of the guys. He was the one that I thought was going to be the hardest to get on this list. So.
Yeah, nice, and I'm loving wherever I can scoop up Decker because he's generally at a price lower than where he should be going, in my humble opinion. But let's move on. There are 2 more, and Mo, pressure's on.
You know what? As people are sitting here listening to this, they're probably screaming at us for not saying this guy's name.
I was
AJ freaking Green, man. Oh, you're kidding!
Oh. Yes, AJ missed it by 2 games. He came in at 7, just like Doug Baldwin, the aforementioned. The interesting thing about Green is that, he started off pretty slow in the sense that he had a lot of wide receiver 3 finishes in the first 5 weeks with a wide receiver 1 finish in week 3. But then he pretty much scattered out those wide receiver 1 weeks. I think the emergence of Tyler Eifert, Giovanni coming out of the backfield might have hurt him a bit, but he did not make this list. Yeah. And, AJ Green, based on his very high floor and his very high value as far as the community goes, the fantasy community, he's been a frequent miss in some of these questions, but I know a lot of people expect AJ Green to ascend back into that top 5 this year, but unfortunately, he did not make this list, no, so that effectively eliminates you and opens the door for Sam. If you can close it out, you can build a 2-point lead here.
Alan Hearns?
No, Alan Hearns did not make this list. Jamie, if you want to locate him, we can circle back. But yeah, Alan Hearns, I think he missed a couple games last year, if I'm not mistaken.
He did, and he finished with 6 wide receiver 1 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think he got close here. He did finish with 6 games, but he did have 4 wide receiver 1 finishes and 2 wide receiver 2 finishes. Unfortunately, Alan Hearns did not make this list. All right, we do have an end of round school break that we're going to ask. Talked about who will be the first rookie to accomplish this feat. And not necessarily next year, but just the first rookie wide receiver coming out that you think is going to join this type of a consistent list where they're putting up 9 or more top 24 performances. Let's go with you first, Mo. Who do you think?
For me, I would probably lean towards Josh Dotson. He'd be the guy, I think, because when you look at the situation in Washington, you've got Pierre entering the end of the contract. It's not that he's terribly old. He could go to another team and be productive for a few more years. He's the kind of guy you can see fitting in real well in a place like New England with a veteran quarterback. If he doesn't re-sign with Washington, that's a huge opening right there. Also, Deshaun Jackson. He's just not somebody I see having a ton of longevity. Once he starts to lose a step, I don't know if he's going to be technically sound enough to really play into, say, the mid-30s. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity opening up for Dotson in the near future. And really, with him and Jordan Reed and a young team, you assume that they're going to try to get something done with Cousins. And you've got a pretty decent nucleus there where Dotson can, make a name for himself over the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I love the talent. I think that the general consensus, though, is the opportunity may not be there as quickly as others. How about you, Sam? Is there a rookie receiver that you think is going to hit that before Dotson?
One of the things I love about fantasy is that it's like predicting the future. And I feel like you can completely have your heart in on one person and it's just at the end of next season. So one person I think can make a good impact would be Laquan Treadwell at the Vikings. I think he can make a pretty good impact there just because it doesn't seem that Teddy has enough talent to really look for. And I think that, getting in a good young guy, big, strong guy could change that for him and he could see some big numbers.
Yeah, very good. I know that Jamie and I are both pretty big fans of Laquan Treadwell. Love Doxson's talent as well. But
one more thing to keep in mind, though, with Doxson, too, is injury history and really lack of durability he got with Garcon and Jackson. If you're wondering about when his opportunities may come, Pierre and Deshaun both have had a really hard time staying healthy and putting together 16-game seasons. So I guess if you're a Dotson fan, it's kind of in your advantage if that would be the common perception out there that he may have trouble seeing the field. That's a bet I'm willing to take against those two players.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Jamie and I both have Laquan and Dotson 1 and 2, but there's been a big shift towards Corey Coleman. I think a lot of people think he's going to have that immediate impact just based on the surroundings, but I do think that wide receiver position is not as clear-cut for Corey Coleman, especially if Gordon comes back, but thank you for that insight, guys. I did forget to name the 2 that you missed. As you guys have had a chance to sit back, do you want to guess or do you want me to just go ahead and give those to you?
I was wanting to scream Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, and when Sam said, I'm thinking 1 or 2, that was like, yeah, that's Jarvis Landry's territory where he's got that very high floor. Jarvis Landry finished with 9 1 or 2 starts, almost evenly split with 5 wide receiver 1 weeks and 4 wide receiver 2 weeks. And when we're talking about floor, he closed it out with 5 wide receiver 3 weeks, so very high percentage of weeks where he had a good floor. The last person is Demaryius Thomas out of Denver, and with I think he had a week or 2 with Brock Lobster, as you called him, Sam. But Demaryius Thomas actually a little bit higher on this list than people think, on the strength of a lot of wide receiver 2 weeks. I think that's might have been what was misleading. He had 4 wide receiver 1 weeks and 7 wide receiver 2 weeks that actually, other than Decker, leads this list of players that had 9 top 24 finishes.
I just pulled off a nice Demaryius Thomas trade in Dynasty also.
I like Demaryius as a buy low right now.
Yeah. Him and Sanders both, actually, because, even with Sanchez throwing the ball, you can see Sanders really benefiting from a lot of underneath passes. Sanchez is, in that 8 to 12 yard range, he's not that bad at feeding the wide receiver. He tries to go downfield, that's when trouble arises. But, I could definitely see Sanders or DT having at least a good enough season to be wide receiver 2, 3 range guys you can depend on.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap up round 1. And Jamie, where do we stand right now?
4-4.
Deadlocked. What a great competition we have going here. That's going to kick off round 2, where we're going to start with Sam. So here is the category, guys. In PPR formats, 7 of the top 12 finishing running backs in 2015 were drafted with an ADP beyond the 3rd round, according to Fantasy Football Calculator. And I think, Sam, you said you had one. So, Sam, who is your first guess?
Well, now I'm second-guessing myself, but I don't think that D'Angelo Williams was taken that early.
That's a good one.
Yeah. See, Sam went big because D'Angelo Williams is definitely the latest drafted running back. Obviously, with Le'Veon Bell there to start the season, but very good take there, Sam. D'Angelo Williams, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, was drafted in the 11th round with the 9th pick, or the 49th running back overall. Yet, in limited action, he finished as the number 5 running back. So, Sam, I think you called out the value drafted running back of last year. So, great job there. So, Mo, that kicks it over to you. Who's your first guess?
We'll go with Mr. Freeman down in Atlanta.
Good call.
Yeah, not to be outdone, Mo said, I'll take your running back 5 finish and see you to running back 1. So Devonta Freeman finished as the number 1 running back in PPR formats, and he was drafted right at the end of the 8th round, or 8-12, and as the 40th running back off the board. I know that Tevin Coleman, for the most part, was going before Devonta Freeman last year, but great guess there, or great choice there, Mo. That ties us up 1-1. Let's move over to Sam. Who's your next guess?
Danny Woodhead.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yes, and Danny Woodhead, I think it's been talked about quite a bit, where he finished as the number 3 running back. Now, I know that a lot of that came on the strength of a couple games where I think he scored 5 touchdowns, but Woodhead, drafted at 609, or the 30th running back overall, finished as the number 3 running back in PPR, and I still think he's going late this year. I mean, a lot of people are expecting Melvin Gordon to pick it up a bit, but at this point, I think Danny Woodhead can be had definitely outside the 3rd round. But Mo, who's your next guess?
How about I'll be your Doug Martin?
Oh, yeah, and finally, Mo.
All right. School's in session. All right, Doug Martin. Doug Martin got paid. Now, Charles Sims is there. He actually had a pretty good year as well in PPR, and he definitely eats into Doug Martin's pass game production. Winston's in his 2nd year. So my question to you guys is, will Doug Martin finish as a top 10 running back in 2016? We'll start with you, Mo.
Man, I don't know. How's that for an answer? Really, it's such an up-in-the-air thing, and you've been let down this road by Doug Martin before.
Yeah.
So, for me personally, I have a little bit of apprehension. So, when it comes down to a guy like that, who I can't have a firm belief in going into the season, then it's got to be all about value. If he's just laying out there on the board and say sometime in the third round, fourth round, then yeah, I'm likely maybe I'll take a shot at him. And if the rest of the running back crop below him is looking a little bit thin, but really, I mean, it's not one that I feel great about going into the season. I can't make that move with any conviction. So.
How about you, Sam? Where are you on Doug Martin?
I agree with that. It's just kind of hard to think he's going to have the same repeat of last year. Honestly, it's hard to see any of our running backs do the same thing they did last year. So late third round, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's actually, I think he's kind of creeping into the beginning of that third round. I think I might have a different take on Doug Martin. I know that he burnt a lot of people in his second and third year, but he still is a blue chip prospect who was drafted in the first round on the strength of his rushing yards, where he had over 1,400 last year. I'm actually thinking Doug Martin right now might be a value in the third round. So mark me as somebody who's actually buying on Doug Martin, despite the fact that I've also been burnt by Martin. I'm trying to block that out of my mind and be positive. So
it's funny because last year I was high on Doug Martin. When you could get him in the 8th or 9th round.
Yeah.
I felt really great about picking Doug Martin, and then as the price point rises, my apprehension rises. So.
Yeah. Yeah, totally understandable. So thank you for that, guys, once again. And I believe that will kick us over to you, Sam. Who is your next guest?
So far, we have knocked off Devonta Freeman, Danny Woodhead, Doug Martin, and D'Angelo Williams.
It's so difficult because it's kind of hard to see them not being drafted early when you're looking at their stats from last year.
Yep, absolutely.
Lamar Miller?
Yeah, so sorry. Now, Lamar Miller was one of those top backs, but he, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, he did have a ADP of 2.10 last year. All right, so that gives you your first strike, Sam. Sorry about that. Great guess. But once again, ADP is a little bit hard to remember. But Mo, who is your next guess?
How about David Johnson?
Yeah. David Johnson, coming in as a rookie, was being drafted in the 10th round, actually the end of the 10th round, and as the 46th back off the board. I do remember Johnson coming in, and there were questions about his physicality and his ability to kind of hit it up the middle there, but he came in and just tore it up in the passing game and was a touchdown monster. But for the school break, for you analytics guys, this is where we're talking about small sample size. Now, David Johnson, whether it's redraft or dynasty, is going as probably either from the third to the fifth running back. Based on that small sample size, though, have you seen enough to say that Johnson actually warrants that price? We'll start with you, Mo, because you got this question. What do you think about David Johnson as the third to fifth running back off the board?
I like David Johnson. I know some people have questions about his efficiency and how good of a runner he is when it comes to seeing holes, hitting holes, and making plays, mostly in the run game. I think in the open field, you get him, as a receiver, he's going to make plays. He's going to find some open space and get yardage. As far as being the third or fifth back off the board, I don't think that's the move that I'm looking to make. Again, I mean, drafts, it sounds redundant, but it's all about value. And, it's a mixture, actually, of value and consistency, how confident you can feel in this guy that you're not going to burn a high pick. And David Johnson, for me, is not a guy that I'm going to feel very confident about until he has a little bit more on the track record. So.
Yeah. How about you, Sam? Where do you stand on David Johnson? Is he worth the third to fifth running back selected?
Third to fifth overall?
Yeah. As far as running backs go. So, we're talking about Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, and then we kind of have him in the mix of Ezekiel Elliott right now, and David Johnson and Devonta Freeman. Should he be going in that range?
I think top 10, but I don't think between 3 and 5. Just based on value, and Elliott's kind of throwing off everyone's radar with where everyone's going to go because he's got the hype train behind him. I would say first round pick, but I wouldn't say he's a top 5 running back to be drafted.
I think I agree with you, Sam and Mo, and that the sample size was so small, and I think back to players like Steve Slayton, who had a strong finish to their rookie year, C.J. Anderson, who had a strong finish to to his first year where he saw extended work, and you start thinking about whether or not David Johnson is one of those players who's so physical he might hit the wall with all that contact. So I like David Johnson as well. I'm not sure that I'm willing to invest a late first or early second in him. That brings us to our next guest. Let me run down the players that we've already named. We've got Devonta Freeman, Danny Woodhead, Doug Martin, D'Angelo Williams. David Johnson was just identified by Mo. And that leaves us with 3 more running backs to name.
Chris Ivory.
Very good, very good.
Sam, you're getting some that I thought were kind of under the radar, but you also identified another school bell, so let's break down to drop some knowledge. And this is going to be a quick question because, they brought Ivory in. They had a lot of money to spend, and they gave him a lot of money, but I don't know. Who are you taking, Chris Ivory or TJ Yeldon out of the Jaguar backs? We'll start with you, Sam.
I don't know that I'm planning on taking a Jaguar back. I kind of feel like they're split on likelihood of who could be the better back by the end of next season. I feel like it's 50-50. I don't know. I feel like I would maybe go with Ivory just because he's a veteran and go with consistency rather than Yeldon. I guess that's my answer.
All right. Thank you for that. Mo, what do you think? Ivory or Yeldon?
Ivory was my guy last year when it came to NFL 10s or any of the redraft leagues where I went really heavy with the RB0. I felt good about his year last year, and he paid off in a big way. This year, going against Yeldon, I'm going to lean toward the guy with the younger legs. I think Ivory sort of hit the wall a bit toward the end of the year. He came on. I mean, he really is. He's a poor man's version of Marshawn Lynch with what you get in the running style and him willing to be a battering ram in there. In the end, I think Yeldon's going to be the guy who's going to, really carry the Jags backfield on the end of the season. I think he'll be the guy who ends up with more yardage, touchdowns. That might be in question, but I'll go Yeldon.
Yeah. And I actually agree with you, Mo, that Yeldon, and this is actually suppressing Yeldon's price a bit. So someone who's high on Yeldon is actually getting a little bit of a discount. And the one thing I'd point to with Ivory is that, he finished as a top 12 back, but he's been very susceptible to injury in the past. And, Yeldon seems like that really solid foundation. So for me, I can definitely see Ivory scoring big when he's playing. But for me, I think, at least for me, the safer pick is going to be Yeldon. And I think going into that last question, I misstated it. You guys have, with Chris Ivory, have identified 6 of the 7 running backs that fall into this category. That leaves only 1. So, that goes over to you, Mo. Can you get the last one?
All right. I got a strike to burn. I'm going to take Thomas Rawls.
Thomas Rawls, unfortunately, he did not finish in the top 12. Now, on a per-game average, or per-start average, I should say, he probably finished top 12. But, we talked about Rawls and his monster games. But the fact that Marshawn Lynch was there for the early season.
First 4 or 5 games, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Thomas Rawls gives you your first strike, and it opens up the door for you, Sam. Can you get the last person on this list?
Could it be Latavius Murray?
Sam, you get the first very, very near miss because Latavius Murray was drafted at 309.
What?
Yes. I know that a lot of people were high on Latavius Murray with McFadden departing from Oakland, but as a 15th running back overall, Latavius Murray made the list as far as top 12 running backs, which is somewhat obscure, but he did not qualify for being drafted outside the 3rd round, so Latavius Murray is going to give you your second strike, Sam. Now, the good news is that Mo has 1 strike left, so he's either going to get it here or he's going to miss it. So almost no harm, no foul. Mo, can you get the last guy on this list?
Darren McFadden. I was possessed by the star in front of me.
Yeah, there you go. And, I just mentioned Darren McFadden, so you give me little credit for not trying to give away these answers. But no, Darren McFadden was actually very close because he finished as the 13th back, and he went in the 8th round at number 36 back. off the board. So, yeah, another very, very near miss for you, Mo.
Todd Gurley.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, if you remember correctly, there were still questions about Todd Gurley, and he went on average at the end of the 5th round as the 27th back off the board.
Yeah, I struck him off the list right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem, I guess, with Dynasty. I've got it in my mind that he was the guy who was jumping off the board very early.
That's absolutely right. The number 1 dynasty pick, in my opinion. I know I took him number 1 overall. But yeah, Gurley and redraft, I know there were questions about the ACL. And quite frankly, I think that Gurley's production last year is definitely contributing to the overhype. I say overhype of Ezekiel Elliott. But yeah, Gurley was that last one that you guys did not get. He was drafted in the 5th round, and he actually finished as the number 9 back despite limited playing time in the early season.
I was going to say, it's funny that you mentioned, that Mo, you mentioned Dynasty, because in my Dynasty League, we draft rookies separately from everything else. So we have our own rookie draft. Yeah, and you do first, second, third round?
Yep.
Okay.
Basically.
Yeah, so I just remember him going early in that and me being like, damn it, we're all yelling and drunk and trying to figure out who's going to be what. And then one guy's like, I got him. And we're like, I don't know what it means, but it's probably good. So
a certain fantasy football writer I know has an aversion to injured players, and he might have taken Melvin Gordon instead of Todd Gurley.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about kicking yourself now, but
how about it?
We'll see. All right, Jamie, can you ring the bell one more time?
Sure can.
All right, and that school bell denotes the end of the round school break, so time to drop some knowledge. All I want you to do is give me a 1 late round sleeper that can finish as a running back 1 this year. We'll start with you, Sam. Who you got?
I don't know. I feel like Giovanni Bernard could do some good things. I think that the Bengals kind of shipped out a lot of guys at the end of, or in the off season, so it kind of opens it up for him, shine a bit more.
Yeah, he's one of my guys too. I could see him PPR sneaking into the top 12 easy this year.
Yeah, I really like the answer, Sam. Giovanni Bernard right now, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, is going as the 2nd pick in round 6. Just got paid, hard worker. Actually outproduced Jeremy Hill last year in PPR. So, yeah, I definitely endorse that pick. Giovanni Bernard, especially with injury to Jeremy Hill, or if he continues to underwhelm, could see an increased role. And, the Bengals rewarded for his consistency last year with that new contract. How about you, Mo? Do you have a late round running back that has a good chance to finish in the top 12?
It's a shame. This guy drives me absolutely nuts because he plays for my team. Philadelphia Eagles, but it's got to be Ryan Matthews. I mean, if you could get a 16-game season out of Ryan Matthews, it's unreal. What you probably end up with. I think 1,200 yards at a baseline to, who knows, maybe pushing 14 to 15. The guy played so much better than DeMarco Murray last year. I mean, he was stronger, he was faster. When he hit the open field, he was gone. And for a guy who's standing, 6'1", 225, he's a really amazing running back, but this is pretty much last-ditch effort for the guy. He's 29 years old now. If he were to suffer another season-ending injury, who knows when the next opportunity is going to come. So, if he stays healthy, Ryan Matthews could be, a guy who has an amazing season this year.
Homer. Excuse me, I was coughing there. No, in all actuality, I like both of your picks, but Ryan Matthews, who's going at the 9th pick in the 5th round, or the 23rd running back overall. I agree. I think that reports about Wendell Smallwood might be a little overblown, as all the fluff reports and OTAs are. Now, you did mention that it is going to be very reliant on health, but, Matthews, despite early career troubles as far as staying on the hill, has been somewhat resilient in the past couple of years. But, I can definitely get behind that pick. And with Doug Peterson coming out of that Andy Reid school, where Andy Reid has consistently produced top fantasy backs, from Westbrook to Jamal Charles to a couple more that Mo, you can name a couple more from Philadelphia, I'm sure, but
Well, I mean, even just look at Kansas City last year. The production they got out of a guy like Charkandrick West, out of nowhere. Andy Reid, he had a way of making magic. And that's a really interesting thing is, what is Doug Peterson? He didn't call the plays in Kansas City, so we don't know yet exactly what his offense is going to look like.
Aside from the back and forth and the very close game we have, I'm really loving the insight you guys are bringing here, so thank you for that. That's going to move us into round 3, but before we head into that, Jamie, where we stand with our two competitors?
We are tied at 7.
Wow. First fantasy face-off where we're going into the speed round tie. Now, the category here is, it's a little bit off-kilter and may not feed into fantasy, but there kind of is a takeaway that I'll go over in the end. But we're going to be dealing with quarterback height here.
Height?
Yes, quarterback height.
Oh, gosh.
I know. So I'm going to name 7 quarterbacks, and I want you to tell me whether they're taller or shorter than 6'4". Let me know when you're ready, and I'm going to name 7 quarterbacks. You can say over or under.
Okay, 30 seconds is teed up. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Start now.
Russell Wilson.
Under.
Brock Osweiler.
Over.
Phillip Rivers.
Over.
Aaron Rodgers.
Under.
Drew Brees.
Under.
Matt Ryan.
Under.
Kirk Cousins.
Under.
All right, there we go. You got 6 of 7, Sam.
Yes!
So the category here was under 6'4". Sam, you were correct with Russell Wilson. He's 5'11". Brock Osweiler, the Rock was a rock lobster who keeps showing up. He is definitely over at 6'7". He was the tallest in this group. Phillip Rivers, one that I probably would have missed because I don't know why it seems like he's shorter because of that sidearm sling, but he's at 6'5". Aaron Rodgers, who I thought was a little taller, comes in under at 6'2". Drew Brees at under, you got correct at 6 foot. Matt Ryan at 6'5". That was one that I probably would have missed and one that you missed as well, Sam. So, but you closed it out with Kirk Cousins at 6'3", who is under 6'4". So, very, very strong showing. I think you definitely put the pressure on Mo. Let's see how he's going to react to this.
Okay.
We got you back, Mo.
Hey.
I got bad news because Sam kind of killed it. The best showing so far in the fantasy face-off speed round.
Awesome.
And, as we generally do with the second person coming on, we actually let you know where you need to go. Now, Sam answered 6 of the 7 right, so you basically got to be perfect, Mel, to take this one home. This one, we talked about wide receivers, we talked about running backs, and we're going to move to the quarterback position. The question for you is around height. And I've got 7 quarterbacks. What I need you to do is say over or under whether this quarterback is over 6'4" or under 6'4".
I've got 30 seconds on the clock. You ready, Mo?
All right, do your worst.
Okay, ready? Begin.
Russell Wilson.
Under.
Brock Osweiler.
Over.
Phillip Rivers.
Over.
Aaron Rodgers.
Under.
Drew Brees.
Under.
Matt Ryan.
Under.
And Kirk Cousins.
Under.
Under.
All right.
How many did I miss?
1.
Hold on, let me guess. It was Rodgers.
No, it was actually Matt Ryan, and it was actually the exact...
He's 6'1" and knows, isn't he?
Well, I got him at 6'5" here.
Do you?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I would have missed that one as well. That was the one that Sam missed, so unbelievable that we are tied at... what is the score now, Jamie?
13-13.
13-13, we are tied. All right, guys, so for the tiebreaker, on your paper, I would like for you to write down the total passing touchdowns from these 3 players. So I want you to add their passing touchdowns from 2015 together and write down the number. So there's a little bit of math in here.
Told there would be no math.
All right, so for your tiebreaker, guys, the question is, how many touchdowns total did Cam Newton, Blake Bortles, and Carson Palmer throw?
108 and 72.
All right, so Sam has answered 72. Mo has answered 108. Now, the funny thing about it here is each of these quarterbacks threw the exact same amount of touchdowns at 35. 35 times 3 is 105. Yeah, Mo, you nailed it. At 108, wow, very, very close guess there, Mo. So at 105, Mo, you are our winner for this round. Congratulations. You move on to the next round.
Awesome. Sam, tremendous game.
My goodness, Sam. I
don't care what anybody says. Matt Ryan's got 6'1".
Yeah, so very cool. I think that, and we probably won't spend time on this, but one of the reasons why I pulled in this height question is the two camps as far as Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, where Jared Goff is actually right at 6'4", probably a little bit under, but he is that cerebral quarterback that's got that pocket presence and is NFL ready. And then there's the camp that says, let me go with that ultra elite athlete with the great measurables, and Carson Wentz at 6'5". So as you can see on this list, all these quarterbacks, I'd probably say, other than Brock Osweiler, maybe Kirk Cousins, have shown well, and it's a pretty even split between those quarterbacks under 6'4" and over 6'4". But Sam, Mo, I can't thank you guys enough. This is definitely the closest and most heartbreaking loss I would say for one of our competitors. But I'm gonna stop down right now. I'm gonna kick it over to you guys and ask for final thoughts or any parting shots in just a moment. Okay, guys. So on the strength of a tiebreaker question, Mo, you will move on and you'll get the honors of facing Jake in round 2. But before we close it out, I want to kick it back to a very special guest. And first off, I definitely want to thank you guys for coming on the show. This is definitely a very, very fun show, and not only fun as far as the competition, but really, really good insight as far as those school break questions. So, Sam, any closing words for the audience or the crew here?
It's been fun. I didn't know that math would be my downfall, but I haven't taken a math class since 2005. And I'm the worst at numbers. Like, I round completely the wrong way. I knew that if it had to do with math, I would be out. And that was my downfall. So, but I thank you guys. It's been a lot of fun. And Mo, quite a competitor. I'm glad that we were right there.
Yeah, Sam, it was a blast. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah. Oh, and follow my league on Twitter too. I think it's at the SFL Podcast.
Yeah, at the SFL Podcast. And when do you guys start releasing podcasts, Sam? Do you know?
Well, they're still up on SoundCloud from last season. So if you're so bored and you can find them on SoundCloud, the Sunday Funday podcast, you can find it there. Some pretty good banter. And then we'll probably be recording later this summer. We're going to do a few off-season ones. And then we do it once a week in season.
Yeah, good stuff. Please remember to follow Sam at Samantha R. Holt on Twitter. And this is my personal thing, but you got to check out her website on cargocollective.com, where some of the most jarring and hard-hitting images are on there, and I love them, by the way. So thank you once again, Sam, for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, any parting shots for the listeners in the audience?
Well, just thank you guys for having me, and Sam, it was great competition. I checked out the website too. Your artwork is really awesome.
Thank you.
I'm taking another look when we get done here. But yeah, if you have some time, you want to talk some football, argue, or disagree with me, at smashmouth_Mo on Twitter. Check me out on dynastyleaguefootball.com. We got a lot of really awesome content there, a lot of really talented writers, and really the site's getting better, all the time. So hope to talk to a bunch of you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you, Mo. Yeah, please remember to follow Mo at smashmouth_Mo. And one thing I would throw in there, although we didn't talk about IDP, you can definitely get some good IDP content if you're into that type of fantasy football from Mo here.
Yeah,
so
DLF has a really strong IDP group of writers, and once we get into the season, we open up with a lot of different series to help you, through your weekly lineups to find you sleepers and guys off the waiver wire. So yeah, it's a really great resource for dynasty players.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah, so once again, thank you guys. What a way to close out round one with a competition that was neck and neck the entire way through. I'm going to kick it over to you, Jamie. Any parting words?
This has absolutely been the closest contest that I've been a part of. Seriously. This came down to I mean, I can't believe it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, the last thing I'll leave you guys with is outside this tournament, we've started getting chatter around a challenge type one-off. So if you have somebody that you want to bring on this show to kick their beep, please reach out to them, get it set up, and we'll do the legwork behind setting up the questions and such so that you can destroy them, because that's what fantasy football is all about.
So we can ask one of our friends to join just for a one-off to try and beat someone.
Yes, and we're going to call it the challenge series. And if you just send us the request, we'll let you know when we can put that together, and we'll throw together some questions, and we'll have fun just like we did today. And that goes for analysts out there who are listening as well. But that's going to wrap it up for the fourth episode of the Fantasy Football Face-Off. Definitely had some fun. I do want to remind you to please go to iTunes, subscribe, rate, and review. Once again, follow us at fantasy_IPA. Follow Jamie at FIPA_black. That's going to do it for this episode. And until next time, make sure you get you some IPA.
Adios.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy IPA podcast. Visit us at fantasyipa.com and follow us on Twitter at fantasy_IPA.
Hail to the king, baby. To the house, baby.
Please subscribe and review at iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast provider.
That's called trust.
See you next time, and until then, make sure you get you some IPA.
Come get some. Get some. Get some. Get some. We just want to say thank you for all the love.
And we're out.